what's going on, everybody? This is John J Gaming on the mic here, coming at you with a brand new episode of the NCSL here on College Football Revamp, and we are here not only in our inaugural season of the NCSL Dynasty, but we are also here in week number 5, so we are deep in that action as of right now. Lots of intriguing matchups here in week number 5. Gonna see multiple top 25 teams going in action, like the Penn State Nittany Lions, who come in ranked number 5 in the country. We got a great matchup in the Southwest Classic. Those two teams are gonna go up against each other. Is Northwestern for real? They're 3-1 to start this season, not ranked yet in the top 25. Do they finally prove themselves in that nationally televised game? Obviously, though, we do have so much more than that. Rivalry games galore. We'll also have multiple national title games. They're not nationally title games, but nationally televised games, I should say. And of course, you know, your fair share of top 25 matchups. So it's going to be a really fun episode, and I truly hope that you guys are going to be really excited about this episode. If you are, make sure you go ahead, smack that like button, hit that subscribe button if you do have to be brand new to the channel. Let's go ahead and dive right in to the nationally televised action here in week number 5. But we go ahead and jump into week number 5 action officially underway, as we'll start off with a rainy day down in Happy Valley, as BYU, with a solid record of 2-1, they are taking on the undefeated Penn State Nittany Lions, and you can see why that Penn State team is undefeated, coming in ranked number 2 in the entire country as well. Dale Robinson get called for that offensive pass interference, but yet still, in spite of that, they got a turnover. So this Penn State defense, definitely legit, but also this offense, they are certainly more than capable of moving this football. And Penn State, you know, it might be too much for BYU, but we'll have to wait and see, as we'll see the quarterback run the football up in the middle of the field. That is Brian Henry, who gets a nice little 5-yard rush in order to set up a goal line opportunity. We'll see if they can go right back to that option, and sure enough, they do, as Brian Henry finds his way into the end zone. Touchdown, Nittany Lions. We're now looking at a 14-0 affair, as now BYU trying to stay in this game. Looking over to the left-hand side, that is Will Wilson that makes the catch there for BYU, as they are still looking for the first points of this ball game. They have been shut out thus far, but triple option here is going to get BYU on the board, as Victor Johnson is actually going to have that count for him as a passing touchdown. Imagine that. And not only that, Penn State cannot score in their next possession, so BYU actually has a chance to tie this football game up. Don't go anywhere. I may have written off this team before, but it's going to be a touchdown for BYU. It's a tie ball game here at Happy Valley. Are we going to start this episode off with an upset? Well, it's a little bit harder to do that when not only you miss the extra point, which it's from 2 yards out. How you miss an extra point, right? Well, they also managed to throw an interception over to Jamal Jackson. So Penn State is looking to capitalize on getting some additional points on the board instead. And it's going to be Brian Henry running his way into the end zone. That is a touchdown for the Nittany Lions. And that's his second rushing touchdown of the day. And so Penn State will take a 21-13 lead into the halftime locker room, as they will once again hand the football off to Justin Hill, as they will be looking to pull away here in the second half of action. Henry's going to line up in the goal line formation. Everybody and their mom on the line, but it's going to be Justin Hill, who runs in essentially untouched, by the way. Nobody really touches him until after he gets across the goal line. And sure enough, we will see Penn State start to pull away, but this BYU Cougar squad, well, they certainly got some fight left in them. They are not giving up. They will not lose this game easily. Second and goal now. We're going to make this a one-score game. Firing to the end zone, and a diving grab in the center of the end zone, and Victor Johnson gets his second touchdown. They do go for the 2-point conversion, but the 2-point conversion, no good. They do not get the 2-point conversion. A little bit of a bold strategy for Connor because it still makes it a 2-score game. In Penn State, they know how to put points up on the board. Hard to get 2 stops and then proceed to score points on this particular team. So, 3rd and 6 coming up, though. This will be big if they can get this stop here. Henry has a collapsing pocket and fires a missile over the middle to Brendan Thompson. Touchdown, Penn State. And it's back up to being a 16... Well, no, not a 16-point game. They will go for 2 for themselves. And Brian Henry, if they're going to show them how it's done, finding Brendan Thompson in the corner to get that 2-point conversion. Now Penn State finds itself up by 17 points right now. Looking to extend that lead even further as we get into that 4th quarter of action to make this a 20-plus point game. Henry looking for the end zone yet again, and he's got it. Brian Henry in the end zone again. A touchdown for the Nittany Lions. Now 43-19. And BYU, if they're going to come back and win this game somehow, they are going to need nothing short of an absolute miracle. I'm just keeping it real with you guys. It's not looking good for BYU right now. Looking over the middle of the field, though. They will not be going down quietly as Victor Johnson does throw yet another touchdown pass. That'll be his 3rd of the day, as that will make it 43-25. Meanwhile, Victor Johnson looking to find their way for the 2-point conversion, and he fumbles it. He fumbles the football, and even though one of the wide receivers did pick it up, they are actually not allowed to actually move the ball forward when it's a 2-point conversion situation. So, 2-point conversion, no good for BYU, and while it's an admirable fight for the Cougars, Penn State, those Nittany Lions, they will remain undefeated on the season. As we will jump in on a little bit of a quad box as we get a bunch of other games starting up while we're waiting for the Penn State and BYU matchup to finish up. We'll start with Florida and Kentucky, 2 teams that have really struggled out of the gate so far this season. As we do get our first studio update, we got New Mexico taking on a solid Boise State squad, and New Mexico is up by a field goal. Meanwhile, in our game against Florida and Kentucky, 2 teams that don't like each other. Florida looking for their 2nd win of the season, whereas Kentucky, they're just trying to get into the win column right now. They have not looked good over the course of this season, getting blown out by the likes of a Penn State squad, for example. That was not a good look. So who is going to execute a little bit better? But before we go deeper into that game, we get yet another studio update from New Mexico and Boise State. In Boise State, they will take their very first lead here in the 1st quarter of action, as Boise State now up 7-3 with still a couple minutes left to play in the 1st. As for our game, Florida up 17-7 right now. They're going to extend this up to a 20-7 game. So not a ton happening in that Florida and Kentucky game. Kind of what I've been expecting, considering these 2 teams have not been very good this year. But this other game out west, it's been surprisingly interesting though. So that being said, last seconds of the 1st half, Florida trying to go into the locker room with just a 10-point deficit. They will accomplish that as Florida up 20-10. We'll see if they can hold on to that lead, or will Kentucky get that 1st win of the year. Good thing for Kentucky, they do get the ball to start this 2nd half. And in the 2nd half, they go to their running back, Walter Thompson, who I thought is going to find their way into the end zone, but vision is not the best for that guy, so instead going to be a 3rd and goal. Won't need another attempt to get into the end zone, which he does thanks to the halfback toss over on the right-hand side. They're beefing up over in the middle of the goal line. That being said, though, Kentucky down by a field goal, looking to take the lead. Late in the 3rd quarter, fires over the middle, finds a receiver in Eric Bolden, and it will be a bold 1st down. As it now, great performance for Eric Bolden, now with over 100 yards receiving on the day, as that was almost intercepted. They almost intercepted the toss on the option play. I actually do not know how they managed to hold on to that ball, but Kentucky still has a chance to take the lead, but instead it's going to be intercepted. It will be intercepted in the back of the end zone, so a golden chance for Kentucky to take the lead, and they simply cannot do it, unfortunately. So Kentucky is able to see their deficit grow a little bit. Now a 6-point deficit instead of just a 3-point deficit. But things could get very interesting here, though, as Kentucky is still in this game. And keep in mind, Kentucky has turned the ball over 5 times today. I haven't shown all the turnovers, obviously, but 5 turnovers, not a good look. Probably why they're 0-3, to be honest with you guys. But they still have a chance to win this game. 1st and 10 inside the 15-yard line. Wesley throwing over the left-hand side. It's intercepted yet again. And this particular corner, William Calhoun, he's going to be living in his quarterback nightmares dreams. He sets the school record for most interceptions in a single game. He had 5 interceptions. That is absolutely incredible that he was able to accomplish that. Florida wins the game. So we check out another game that's happening around the same time, and it is Notre Dame, the number 12 team in the nation. They are taking on Northwestern out in the Chicago area, as Northwestern having a good year but not getting that national recognition yet. They are coming into this game 3-1, so already halfway to bowl eligibility. But Notre Dame trying to show that their offense is a little bit better than what they have shown recently, because ever since that Tennessee game back in, I believe it was week number 1, their offense has not been very good. Defensively, they've been great. They've been able to really shut things down, but really not proving the doubters wrong in this game. Northwestern still only down 7-0. It could still go either way. As a matter of fact, the Wildcats, they have a chance to tie this game. They're going to go into a 5-wide set, and it's going to be just a quarterback draw instead for Jermaine Smith. Using that athleticism to find the end zone, allows them to tie the game briefly, but Notre Dame, courtesy of using a bunch of field goals, well, they are probably going to hold on and win this game. But before we confirm that final score, though, we do have one more studio update from New Mexico and Boise State, where the Broncos have a 7-point lead. And sure enough, it is Notre Dame that wins this game, but definitely some concerns moving forward, as they only put up 16 against Northwestern. As for another studio update, we got UCLA taking on the Nevada Wolfpack, and UCLA getting put on upset alert right now as that number 4 team in the entire country. Well, they are down 7-0 against Nevada. But we check in on another team in the top 10, though, and that is the LSU Tigers, who are taking on another Tigers team, the Memphis Tigers. And Memphis is looking to play a little bit better this week. We seen them get absolutely plastered and bamboozled by Ole Miss, and that was ultimately what allowed Ole Miss to enter the top 25. But LSU not playing up to that top 10 ranking standard, as they only take a 10-0 lead into the halftime locker room. But we might start seeing LSU pull away here a little bit in this second half. They do open it up to a 17-point game before Memphis does finally get up on the scoreboard. But here in the fourth quarter, they have a chance to make this a 1-score game. Can Memphis execute on this drive? And that's not what you want to see. A key turnover this late in the game. Andrew Wright just cannot make that throw. You cannot do that, my guy. So now LSU a chance to ice the game, but instead it's Memphis that forces a turnover himself. The second interception for Anthony Williams, a chance to tie this game, going for a halfback screen, and LSU denies it. They deny the goal line opportunity, and LSU barely hangs on and escapes the potential upset. But we do get a top 25 matchup to watch early on in the season, though, and it's an old SEC conference game before realigned conference the way that they are today. This is now a non-conference matchup as Texas A&M, who's ranked number 11 in the country, they will be taking on the number 16 ranked Arkansas Razorbacks. And Arkansas, they're coming off a 19-7 win against fellow conference opponent Arkansas State. And given how Arkansas's defense is rolling, they are really taking a lot of what they built in that previous top 25 matchup that we saw in the last episode. Well, they're applying it here as well as they get a quick turnover. And now 1st and goal, Arkansas with a chance to get some quick points on the board. And I didn't think that they were going to score here at first, but then Carl Murphy, man, he just finds a way to get into the end zone. I don't know how he pulled it off. I don't know how he did all of that, but he found his way into the end zone nonetheless. And now Arkansas with a 7-0 lead. We'll see if they can build upon that. But Texas A&M's defense, they came to play as well. As last time that we saw them on national TV, we saw them with a unranked loss to Nebraska, or at least a team that was not ranked in the top 25 at this time. So that being said, they got that in the back of their mind. We'll see if they can respond to the challenge as they get it off to the tailback. This tailback's got some serious speed down the sideline, and Donner Vandermeulen with a 29-yard reception. That is one heck of a last name. Not even a created guy. That is a computer-generated person that came up with that last name. Absolutely a beautiful thing to see. So is finding the end zone. Vandermeulen does finish the drive for Texas A&M. So all knotted up here at 7 as we get into the last few minutes here of this first half of action, as we got another big run down the sideline. He's at the 20, does get pushed out between the 20 and the 15-yard line as Xavier Griffin with that 37 rush going to try to set up yet another touchdown drive, and they do. Jared Morris finds the end zone, and the number 11 team in the nation, they retake the lead. And we jump in now to that second half of action. Very close game between these two teams that we got going on right now. Could go in either direction. Every play matters. Few plays later, 3rd and 10. Mornay, he's going to load up and throw downfield, and it's going to be intercepted. Trying to go for it all and gets absolutely nothing. Just like going to Vegas looking to gamble your savings away. Most of the time you end up with nothing. But Texas A&M will respond pretty well, though, by scoring on the very next drive. Lawrence Hughes gets that touchdown. And they will go for the 2-point conversion as well. But Lawrence is going to try to go for a scramble. Runs right into the pressure, so you hate to see that. But what you don't love to see, or what you do love to see actually, is Cal wins yet again. This time they beat Fresno State 28-21, and the California Bears are still undefeated. But with one of the last plays in the fourth quarter, potentially, we're going to see them drop back the pass. Look over to the left-hand side, and it's going to be caught! It's going to be caught for a touchdown. Zach Beck burns the defense on the back end, gives Arkansas the lead with 2 minutes left, and Texas A&M, they will get a field goal to end the regulation. So this actually goes to triple overtime, and yet in triple overtime, when you get into those overtime periods, one play can make the ultimate difference. And sure enough, it was Xavier Griffin's game-winning touchdown run, as it will give the Texas A&M Aggies 35-32 in this year's iteration of the Southwest Classic, something that these two rivals will not soon forget. As we have a few more games coming up on the 1 o'clock slot, including a ranked team by the Michigan Wolverines. We'll check in on a couple of other teams that are, playing in this game right now. Actually, no, we'll check in on Arizona and Michigan because that's where our first highlights come from. And hang on now, Arizona, they might be the much inferior football team, but hey, they didn't come here to get a paycheck. Let's just put it that way. Michigan will be tied still at 7. They do get a long touchdown off screen, but they do have their first red zone opportunity of this ball game as well. Quarterback's going to scramble upfield. He's got the will to get into the end zone, but Mike Williams will be just 1 yard short. Hopefully that doesn't hurt them too terribly much. Next play though, and it turns out I was right. Maurice Hall does find their way into the end zone. That is a touchdown for the Michigan Wolverines. So that makes it 14-7. As they will once again go ahead and run with the ball real quick. That's going to be 1st and goal for Mike Williams. Looking to make this a 21-7 game. Williams under center is going to hand it off. And it's a one butt naked open hole for Maurice Hall. And Hall will get their 2nd rushing touchdown of the game. And not only that, they're also going to tack in on a little bit of a field goal before we go into halftime. The kicker obviously excited about that, which a little bit weird because, I mean, you're up by 14 to 17 points. A little bit weird energy, but Michigan looking good here as they were starting to get ready to wrap up non-conference play. And they just maintain. They're not going to choke that easily, as it does look like the Michigan Wolverines. They will come out on top, winning 44-17. The Wolverines showing that they are indeed worthy of that top 5 ranking. But what about some other teams that could eventually work their way into the top 25? These are certainly a couple of teams who are matching up against each other. One representing the Peach Division in the ACC, another the Sunshine Division in Florida State. Both teams were in the old ACC as well, so you know, those old rivalries, those old conference tensions, they do run wild here. But Florida State with a chance to show that they are very capable of being a top 25 team themselves. They are 2-1 so far in the season with only a loss to Washington, but down by 3 right now. And it's not because their defense was terrible. They have literally not scored yet this season. Ever since that Wyoming game back in week 1, it has never been the same. But Luis Barrett's looking over the middle, finds his receiver in Ryan Jones. And the tailback out of the backfield is going to find the end zone. And that is a touchdown for Florida State. As with less than 2 minutes left to play in the first half, they finally do get themselves on the scoreboard. You love to see it. As now 7-3 is your score. Georgia Tech trying to respond to that previous touchdown drive, but Lance Willis, he throws it right at the linebacker. Explain me that. Just not a good decision really at all, if we're going to be honest here. But still a close game. We're going to jump into the 4th quarter of action, and it's still a very low scoring game, which certainly favors Georgia Tech because they don't have that great of an offense. But they can just score 1 touchdown here. They will take the lead, possibly win this game depending on how the next few minutes go. And sure enough, exactly what Georgia Tech does. They will go for that 2-point conversion as they're looking to make this a 7-point game. They do find the end zone, and that was indeed the difference. Georgia Tech, they beat Florida State 14-7 in a defensive struggle. As for the Iowa Hawkeyes, we're going to check in on the battle of the Cy-Hawk Trophy. Iowa State taking on Iowa. This one taking place at Kinnick Stadium at Iowa University. We'll see if Iowa can pull the upset and get themselves back to 500, or will Iowa State race out to a 4-1 start? We'll see who wants it more, as it's still a close game here, which is what we expect out of most rivalry games. But looking towards the back of the end zone, and that, I mean, if you're going to look towards that receiver, you should have known that he was way too covered to try to throw that football. You cannot make that pass. So points come off the board for Iowa State because of that dumb mistake, but they will respond by getting a field goal later on in the first half, able to extend that lead to a 7-point game before Iowa does get a long touchdown. They will go for the Hail Mary, though. They're trying their very best to be aggressive, but, you know, it's one thing to be aggressive, and it's another thing to just be stupid. Look at this replay here. Who is this ball going to? Let me know down in the comment section what you guys think about that. But that is why Iowa has the lead, because, yes, what they're doing on offense, really nothing highlight worthy that you guys would specifically see necessarily, but they're doing what they need to do in order to win the game. You know, they're making the smart plays, but Iowa State, they look like they're going to learn from their old ways here. They do tie the game up at 20-all, so it could be a very interesting Cy-Hawk Trophy game. But before that, Illinois and Georgia Southern just went Final 2. So with that being said, that is a very shocking upset for Illinois to beat Georgia Southern. Great shootout, but this could turn into a bar burner towards the other end, as Iowa, they've been playing mistake-free football all day long, but last 5.5 minutes of the game, Gabe Curry throws a very unfortunate interception, and this might be the time that we see Iowa State pull away. Touchdown lead. Quarterback's going to scramble, and Derek Sims gets it into the end zone. Touchdown, Iowa State. And again, we get another studio update. We get a final for New Mexico and Boise State, and it was a close game all along, but Boise State will win 31-24. But back towards our game, though, Iowa State does have an opportunity to really put this game on ice, and looks like this ball, it's going to be fumbled. It will end up being fumbled. Iowa does not do enough with it, though, as the Iowa State Cyclones, they will be taking home the Cy-Hawk Trophy as they beat their rival 34-20. We do get a double box update here as we get into the 3:30 kickoff games between Georgia and Georgia State. And then we also have USC taking on Washington State as well. But first, we'll jump into the game that's out in the Southeast. A little bit of a Peach State pride as Georgia and Georgia State going up against each other. Georgia State kind of in a similar spot that Florida State is. Good record to start the season, but haven't really proven much of anything in the eyes of the national media. A win here against Georgia would really put those doubters to rest and get them silent, but right now they are going to be loud and clear in this game so far as Georgia opens up with a big lead, and I'm talking about a big lead. 24-0 on the road. It was so bad that Georgia State did not have any first downs in the entire first half. I'm not joking you, and yeah, it's not looking good. I actually thought about super simming this game at this point because at the very next play here, it's going to be a 2nd and 1, and that's going to be a touchdown for Adam Williams. It's a 30-plus point lead. Surely this will not be turned to an exciting game by any point, right? Well, I was proven wrong. I was certainly proven wrong as Georgia State, they got their act together in that last quarter and a half, and now we're talking about possibly making this a one-score game. Like, who saw that one coming, right? Georgia State with a one-possession game against the Georgia Bulldogs, and Michael Taylor scores, so could get very interesting, but unfortunately, Georgia State, they just run out of gas against the number 17 ranked team in the entire country, so Georgia does win that game. Meanwhile, we'll check in on the USC Trojans and see how they bounce back as they take on Washington State, which the Cougars really start off giving their best punches. They take a 9-0 lead against the number 9 team in the entire country. Could have made this into a 16-point lead as well, but, you know, through that interception, don't want to do that against a team that is pretty heavily favored against you, even though they are a team that is on the road and playing in a very underrated college football environment. Washington State has a very good college football environment, better than maybe what they are given credit for, right? At least in our Dynasty universe, right? But USC, they are able to reestablish the lead. We might be seeing this football team wake up as Warren Williams has the ball. He's going to look to try to run his way into the end zone, and sure enough, he does. Warren Williams will score, and with 2 minutes left, we will see USC with a 20-9 lead, and that lead only grows bigger as we get into that third quarter of action. USC now solidifying their 2-possession game, now up by 14 points. It just seems like in the second half, it has been all USC as Warren Williams, well, he's going to find his way into the end zone yet again, now making it a 21-point game. Now ruining Lance Pope and this offense to wake up, because ever since the first few minutes of this game, they have been absolutely shut down. They have not really been able to do much of anything. We'll see if they change that here as they do have a first and goal opportunity, and it looks like Washington State thought they got it into the end zone. Quaden Harden was very close, but looks like they will be marking him short at the 1-yard line. We'll see if they go back to him for this next play, and it looks like, no, it's going to be the Pope, Lance Pope, to find his way into the end zone. Touchdown, Cougars. And it's jacked to a 2-score game as Washington State in the fourth quarter trying to drive again. We know what the options are. Either score or you turn that ball over. There is no other option. Second and goal now for Lance Pope. Fakes the handoff. Drops back. Looks over to the left-hand side. And that is why you do not do a cross-body throw. That's why you do not do that whatsoever. And USC finishes the job by winning 30-16. But we do get to the 6 p.m. kickoff games, and I don't know how Miami pulled this off, but not only are they on national TV yet again, we're taking on another FCS team on national television, which, side note, one thing that I did figure out is that you can actually adjust the uniforms, and, you can get like Central Arkansas. So that's how I got Central Arkansas taking on Miami, even though that's not shown on the ESPN scoreboard, but be interesting to see if Miami can do as well or even better as when they did the last time they took on an FCS squad, where they put up 69 points back in week number 1. We'll see if Miami has that same intensity as they're wrapping up non-conference play for good, and it's a very tough conference that Miami is in, so maybe a little bit of a softener before they get into the meat of conference play, as Miami's still up 7-0. Casey Carter is going to drop back the pass, looks over the middle and finds Jen Newton into the end zone. That's a touchdown for the Miami Hurricanes. We're going to take a quick break from that game as we had a shootout in Ypsilanti, Michigan, named after a Greek war hero. And surely there's going to be some heroes in Eastern Michigan, because the Eagles win 45-38 against the Oklahoma State Cowboys. They walked it off. As for the Miami Hurricanes, they open up their lead to 24-0 as they look to trying to finish the job against Central Arkansas, as they're going to start by the red zone opportunity by handing the ball off to Antoine Bryant. He gets a 5-yard gain there, but facing third and short, though, as Casey Carter's going to tip it off, throwing it out to the right-hand side, but the ball is fumbled and recovered by Central Arkansas. So a lot of fights shown there by the Central Arkansas team. They actually did better than the FCS squad that ended up coming on campus earlier this season. But we do get yet another studio update, though, as Western Michigan and Auburn is getting things started. They're almost at halftime already, but it looks like the Western Michigan Broncos will have a 7-point lead over the number 10 team in the nation. As for Miami, though, they handle their business against FCS Midwest, as they do end up winning 47-4 in their last non-conference game. But now we go into our 7 o'clock matchup, and it's going to be the battle of the Iron Skillet, as SMU is taking on TCU. Both teams living around the Dallas area, so these two teams very familiar with each other due to how close these two teams are. So could be a very heated rivalry game for sure, even though neither team has been very good this season. They combine with just a 1-5 record thus far, as Justin Berry is going to have the biggest gain in this entire ball game so far, a 70-yard touchdown. Steven Jackson has been very good in that first half thus far, as SMU now down by 8, but has a chance to possibly return this back to the crib, but runs out of real estate on the sideline. And yes, neither of these two teams have put up very many points, just 20 points between the two. They've been putting up a lot of yards, so it's just teams not really executing in key moments of the drive. We'll see if SMU can change that, as they're looking to tie this game before going to the halftime locker room. Looks to the left-hand side, but throws the ball late, though. It will be a costly interception, as the TCU defense does hold strong. And TCU now up 14-6, or at least they remain up 14-6, as we will get into that second half of action. Joe Ferris, he's going to make the catch as well. He'll pick up a gain of 8 yards. Now looking at a 2nd and 10 now as we'll look, see Jackson. I'm sorry, Miss Jackson, where have you been? Well, he's been spending some time in that end zone as TCU scores yet again. So while we wait to see if TCU will pull away or not in the Iron Skillet game, we'll check in on the top 25 team that was not on national television as Arkansas State was taking on South Alabama. This was a very close game. Could have gone in either direction, but Arkansas State, they held their composure and won that game. Plus, we get an update from Charlotte and Ohio too, and Ohio pulls the upset on Charlotte. So that's been some crazy stuff that we have seen as TCU looking to get their first win this season, and it's looking good in terms of them finally getting into the win column. Would help them even more. They can finish this drive off with yet another touchdown, as that's going to be Jackson running over a defender, able to burrow his way for a 6-yard carry. That's his 14th carry of the day. They really like to use him as a dual threat quarterback, as they'll go back to that option yet again. If it's not broke, why fix it? And maybe that's why they're 0-3. What the actual heck are we trying to do here? There was nobody there to pitch the ball to. It must have been a severe miscommunication. Luckily for them, SMU can't do anything with it, so the score is still 21-6. That is your current score. And TCU finds themselves back into the red zone here in the 4th quarter. And this time just keeping it simple. Just a little halfback dive there for Vernon Fry. Offensive line does the rest of the work, and they'll score yet another touchdown. As before we check the final score for TCU and SMU in the Iron Skillet, we do get another studio update for Auburn and Western Michigan, and Auburn almost gets upset, but they do barely win. And sure enough, TCU will not only win their first game of the season, but also win the Iron Skillet as well. They win 28-6. So a triple box game as we're starting to wrap up the night. We got Ohio State playing. We got America's game in Army and Navy, and other entertaining matchups to round out the night, as we got Ohio State front and center in their matchup against the Wisconsin Badgers. Ohio State has been absolutely dominant so far this season. Most notably, their best win is against Texas, which did take place back in week number 2. That was a top 25 matchup at the time. And it looks like Ohio State doing the same thing to other teams that they have played against for most of the season, actually. They do have a sizable early lead. They're up by 10. As they're trying to ride that ground game a little bit, as we're going to see this quarterback, Robert Tucker, find his way into the end zone. That is a touchdown for the Ohio State Buckeyes. That's a 24-7 lead. However, Wisconsin gets to the line of scrimmage quickly, changing up that offensive philosophy a little bit. More known as that ground and pound team, but they go a little bit faster towards the end of the first half, and works the profession, get a touchdown for the end of the half. And what's been also surprising as well is that Wisconsin's offense has actually looked better. Now looking at the overall scope of the game, like, they're not scoring as many points as Ohio State right now, but they have more yards, though. So that's been really an interesting development as this game has gone on, which gives me the idea that, hey, Wisconsin has probably held on to the football a little bit more, and they are wearing them down. They still are capable of running the football if they choose to. But it's 3rd and 3, though, and they decide to pass it to Greg Cutler, and Cutler will do what is needed to be done in order to pick up that first down. They're looking for that end zone, so that they can make this a one-score game. And sure enough, they got it. Greg Cutler finds his way into the end zone. Touchdown, Badgers. And just a 2-point conversion away from making this just a field goal game. Throws to the left-hand side and finds Dedrick Williams. And now Wisconsin can get this onside kick and get very interesting. And sure enough, it bounces off an Ohio State football player's hands. Wisconsin is going to recover, so they have a chance to at least tie this game. They get into field goal range. This would send it into overtime, but it's short. It is short. They will miss the field goal attempt, and Ohio State is going to win 31-28. And man, that is just a heartbreaking way to lose this ball game. You hate to see it. Meanwhile, we check in on Virginia Tech and South Carolina. It's going to take us back to a time that maybe college football was just in its infancy, because we're used to having all of these high-scoring games and high-powered offenses. In this particular game, we played an entire half of football. Nobody scored. Literally, nobody scored. And I know it's not my sliders because I actually gotten some solid results, with the sliders that we're using. Of course, we can always make adjustments at the end of the season if you guys disagree with me respectfully. But South Carolina is going to be up 9-0 here, though, as they will finally see a red zone touchdown. That is Martin Wright that carries his way into the end zone. They're also going to go for 2-2, and 2-2s are for dancing, and that's going to be a man dancing in the end zone for a second time in the last two plays. South Carolina now up 17-0, and Virginia Tech trying to break that seal on the scoreboard. Less than 5 minutes left to play. They need a miracle to win this. Handing it off to the running back. It's going to be a solid game, but not a game that's going to really help them with the clock management, because time is certainly not on their side right now. They actually will have to go for it on 4th and goal, and Justin Roden does come through by making a tackle or miss. So Virginia Tech, they don't end up getting shut out, but 7 points is not enough to win in modern college football. And South Carolina, their defense was tough. They win by 10. As for America's game, this is a special one. Two teams, both military service academies. So these two teams, they're going to be teammates in the future, even though they face off against each other right now on this football field. They're on the same team on America's battlefield. Army and Navy, ranked number 20 and number 21 in the country. And one thing that's interesting to watch about the service academies is that they both run triple options. And who says you can't have explosive plays in the triple option? Derek Jensen, 59-yard rushing touchdown, does get the scoring started as Army takes a 7-0 lead early. But Navy, they're going to pass the football, though, to George Dickens, who gets open in the back of the end zone. Kyle Walker lets that thing loose, and he sets a school record for most touchdown passes in a career. He now has 45 career touchdown passes. He's been a starting quarterback for Navy for really quite some time now. And the thing about these triple options games is that they can get really defensive. They can get really competitive really quickly. And that's what we're getting here in America's game. A game that can go in either direction, as Army, they're going to seize the lead with 6.5 minutes left to play. We'll see if Navy can respond, though, as Kyle Walker tries to dump it off. But his running back, he fumbles the bag. He literally fumbles the bag. Army is going to recover this fumble, and they will turn that into a field goal. And now all Army has to do is they just have to make sure that they hold on to the ball, but a crucial turnover. It's the only time that Army has turned the ball over all game. They still have a +2 in the turnover margin, but Navy now has a chance to win. Walker drops back, the pocket completely collapses, and then he still finds his way into the end zone, finds a way to make it work. And now Navy with the lead. It comes down to this Hail Mary. Dropping back, he's going to fire it with all he's got, and it's going to be intercepted. Even if it was caught by an Army guy, well short of the end zone when you're trying to score a touchdown on the final play of the game. And Navy, they will drop their second game of the season, while Navy will remain undefeated on the year. But now we jump into College Game Day as Alabama takes on the Ole Miss Rebels. Ole Miss now ranked number 25 in the entire country after their win against Memphis, and it was an absolute blowout win. Well, this Alabama team, it's not the same Alabama team that we've been accustomed to as we've seen in real life. The NCAA sim can do that to you sometimes. They've already lost the game. If they want to remain in college football playoff contention, they got to win this game. 2-2, something that they can't necessarily avoid if they want to go to the college football playoff, but Terrence Manson making it a hard time for him early. It's going to get a big run to start this game and eventually allow Ole Miss to get the scoring started as Justin Ferwerda, he'll draw first blood in this college game day matchup. Ole Miss now up 7-0. Meanwhile, Curtis West trying to respond on literally the next play after special teams and all that, and he throws an interception. He does throw a very unfortunate interception to Bob Johnson, and it sets up yet another opportunity for Ole Miss to find the end zone, and they will with DeMarcus Underwood, different running back. This running back actually starting to get a little bit of Heisman buzz. And Ole Miss been absolutely balling out, up 17-0. Make that 24-0 in this ball game right now. Ole Miss absolutely rolling on all cylinders. I expected nothing less from an atmospheric crowd that had the opportunity to host college game day. Absolutely electric, and Alabama having a hard time handling. They have not looked good here on the road. But Alabama will find the end zone to start the second half. It just took a little 80-yard halfback screen to get the point scoring started for Alabama. And they will go to William Jones to get that 2-point conversion as well. Also getting a field goal too. So Alabama starting to work their way back into this game. But Terrence Manson, who is getting some NFL buzz, and something that, might have a surprise for you guys with guys that do make it to the NFL, that will be dropping later this fall on the channel, so definitely watch out for that as we get closer to actual college football and NFL season. But you can see why Terrence Manson is getting NFL buzz. He does a great job of really being a leader of the offense, has the Ole Miss Rebels to a big lead right now, 19-point lead, and Curtis West has all the pressure on his shoulders. Looking around, trying to make something happen. It's going to just throw it up for a receiver to do hopefully something, but instead throws his second interception of the ball game. Cost his team some critical points. A field goal could have made it just a 2-score game. Instead, Ole Miss looking for a dagger so that they can get the backups into the game possibly. That is a stiff arm if I have ever seen one. Good Lord, Justin Ferwerda. That man could have a family for all we know. That was absolutely nasty. And it looks like DeMarcus Underwood finding his way into the end zone. That's a touchdown for the Rebels, making it 37-11. And the scoring does not stop after that. They will put up a 40-burger. And even with the backups coming in late in the game, they're going to put up a 50-burger. They put up an impressive performance here on college game day in a rivalry game type of intensity. Ole Miss brought it. They absolutely deserved to be ranked number 25 in the country, and then some. They blow the absolute doors off of Alabama today. You hate to see it. So with all the nationally televised games out of the way, let's now take a look at some other notable scores that happened around the country that we did not get a chance to watch or get a studio update from. We do have Washington, who continues their strong start to the season as the Huskies move to 4-1 after a 49-16 victory over fellow conference opponent, the Stanford Cardinal. As for UCLA, they continue their undefeated streak. They're now 28-10, getting there after an 18-point win over the Nevada Wolfpack in conference play. And then there's the Tennessee Volunteers, who are no longer ranked in the top 25, and that is because not only did they lose to Western Kentucky, oh no, they actually were shut out completely by Western Kentucky, 21-0, as the Volunteers are now just 1-3. As for the Baylor Bears, they end up going on a 35-21 victory. The Baylor Bears now 4-1 on the season, while as the Mean Green dropped their third game. Texas Tech, in addition, moves up to number 21 in the country as they beat the Roadrunners of UTSA 41-24 to get the 3-1. As for the Buffalo Bulls, they were not bowling around as they take down Texas State. The Bobcats dropped their first game of the season losing big 41-9, and Buffalo is now 4-1. As for the Clemson Tigers, they get back into the top 25 as they beat the Akron Zips 45-24. Akron still looking for their first win of the year, dropping to 0-4. As for the Oregon Ducks, they also remain undefeated for now, winning 42-32 against Boston College, although the Eagles did make it interesting in the fourth quarter. And of course, we see the Missouri Tigers get back into the top 25 as well. They're now number 23 thanks to a 31-point victory over the Bowling Green Falcons. So this is what the top 25 is going to be looking like as of right now. And looking at the first 10 teams on this list, there really is not any movement to really report, to be honest. Top 14 teams actually do remain the same, but towards the bottom half of the top 25, we do have some change to report as Georgia moves up a couple of spots after their 13-point win over Georgia State. Nebraska moves up 3 spots as well, even though they happen to be on bye. Navy thanks to their victory against the Army Black Knights, they will now be number 17 in the country. That's up 4 spots. Arkansas moves down a couple of spots after a heartbreaking overtime loss to Texas A&M. Ole Miss with their big win against Alabama, they're up 6 spots now thanks to that 40-point win. Arkansas State, they handled business against Alabama, so they're now number 20 in the nation, up 3 spots. Texas Tech, we already know, move up 3 spots. Alabama moves down 7 spots, so they're still in the top 25 as of right now. However, 2-2, not a good look for the Crimson Tide. Rounding out your group, though, is the Missouri Tigers, who come back to the top 25 ranks. They were unranked going into this episode. Army is still hanging in there at number 24, and then Clemson is back in, ranked number 25 in the nation. Checking out some other teams that are receiving votes, teams like Texas, Rutgers, Central Michigan, and the Colorado Buffaloes. They're all receiving consideration, notable consideration for the top 25 as well. So this is now what the Heisman Trophy race is going to be looking like as of right now. We do have a brand new front runner though, Will Forez, the senior quarterback out of Oregon. He is stepping into that Heisman Trophy candidacy. He's up to number 1. But we also have A.J. Mitchell, the running back out of Central Michigan, in there as well. He is the second place person right now for the Heisman Trophy race, with Jeff Sanders falling down a little bit after a kind of pedestrian performance against an FCS team. But then rounding out your group, we do have DeMarcus Underwood, who helped lead that win against Alabama on College Game Day. That's why you saw Alabama and Ole Miss on the thumbnail. And we have Brian Henry sneaking in there at number 5. He's a junior quarterback out of Addison, Texas, and threw for 5 touchdowns. It was a little bit of shootout against the BYU Cougars. But finally, we check in on the NCAA Players of the Week here in week number 5. Starting on the defense side of football, we got junior corner William Calhoun, who made that quarterback out of Kentucky. Well, he saw some ghosts. He ends up with 5 interceptions in one game. That is a single game record. I'm pretty sure that's an NCAA record as well for one player to have 5 interceptions. Also had a few tackles and a TFL as well. And then we saw what Quan Taylor out of Troy did. Helped this team to a close win against Louisiana Lafayette, but look at the stat line. 23 catches, 352 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He had 4 touchdowns and 23 catches. Like, that is ridiculous. So when I first saw that, I actually thought that that was some type of glitch, some type of typo. And this actually was one of your custom coaches at Troy. I believe it's the coaching on the offensive side of football. So we got to check this out real quick to see if that is actually a glitch or not. And sure enough, it's not. It is actually not a glitch. They threw to 2 receivers, and Taylor was the entire offense in the passing game. Absolutely incredible. Never seen anything like this in an NCAA sim engine. So that wraps up the action here in week number 5. We are now a third of the way through the season. The action is not going to stop, at least not anytime soon. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of the NCSL Dynasty here in week number 5. And if you did, do me a huge favor, you guys. Make sure you go ahead, smack that like button for me. Hit that subscribe button as well if you have to be brand new to the channel. This is John J. Gaming on the mic signing off, but hoping you guys are all out there having a good one. Take care, everybody.